Well, I was watching the coverage. Oh, I'm just going to jump right in here. Jarring. I don't have much time. I just want to cut right to the chase. It's, Tuesday, September 14th, the year of our Lord 2021, broadcasting, unfortunately, out of Capitol Hill. I'm Raheem Kassam, editor-in-chief of the National Pulse. Jump right in. I was watching the, whatever it's called, the Met Gala. So I was in New York, and I was walking past it, and I saw all this commotion and all this nonsense, and I was asking my buddy, I was like, what the heck is going on here? It's the Met Gala, it's the Met Gala. What the heck is the Met Gala? Apparently it's some fancy pants thing that all the fancy pants people do. I don't really... fancy pants used to be a phrase that you used to kind of... There's a little bit of envy built in there. There's no envy built in this anyway. You see how these people dress? These are mentalists. This is a mentalist conference, is what happened last night. And of course, all of the coverage overnight. AOC wore a white dress. It said tax the rich on the back. And it's $30,000 to hang out at the Met Gala and all this. Like, yeah, sure, I'll jump in on social media. But I thought to myself, okay, cool. Nothing interesting happened yesterday. I won't have to do a podcast. Built my day around that. And then, boom. We learned today that General Mark Milley, one of the most senior people in the United States government, has effectively staged a coup. Welcome to the National Pulse. This is everything. This is absolutely everything, to the point where when I sat down at this microphone a moment ago, I didn't even really want to play the music. I think the music even just takes away from the gravity of the situation that we're in here now. Long-term listeners of the National Pulse, readers of the website, will know that we set our faces like flint to exposing treason, effectively, right? People who are in hock to the Chinese Communist Party, people who work happily with it, Fauci, Wendy Sherman, Peter Daszak, all of these people. And it's no surprise. It comes as no surprise to me when Natalie Winters brings me the latest story and says, hey, as she just did, by the way, she just texted me another one. Hey, this person has actually been colluding with them too. Here's a link. Here's how I'm going to frame the story. I'm like, yeah, sure, cool. Like, let's get it up. Let's expose all of these people as quickly and as often as possible. But this one's different. This one bears some very, very serious considerations. And I say it knowing how it may come across, especially to an audience that may not know me, and this is your job, ladies and gentlemen, is to share this podcast with as many people as possible. As the very least that we can all do is to make sure that all of our friends, family members, colleagues, people we bump into in the street really understand what's going on. But Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the highest ranking military official in this country, principal military advisor to the president, the National Security Council, the Homeland Security Council, the Secretary of Defense. I don't even want to say it. I don't want to have to say these words. It'll make it real to me. Sometimes you live in Washington, D.C., you see how the sausage is made. It's kind of fantasy land. It's comedy land. They're clowns. It's this clown world with your money. But this new book, and speaking of new books, we have a guest on the show in a moment who I'll bring into this conversation, who has a much more interesting book than I imagine this one I'm about to quote from will be in the round. But every broken clock is right twice a day. And this new book by Bob Woodward and Bob Costa, it's called Peril. These are people who have extraordinary access to the oligarchy. They are part of it. They're the kind of notary republics of the oligarchy. Costa, nice guy, by the way, and Woodward, not so nice guy, by the way. They report in their book, Peril, that just before the election of last year, and indeed after January 6th, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, I don't want to say it, back-channeled through secret communications to the Chinese Communist Party, specifically his counterpart within the Chinese Communist Party, General Li Zusheng, that if Donald Trump, President Trump, elected President of the United States freely, fairly, no collusion, etc., as we now know, Milley goes to the Chinese Communist Party. He says, listen, if Trump tries to attack you, I'll give you forewarning. He also implies in these communications, and specifically some communications that it appears that he had with Nancy Pelosi around the same time, that he wouldn't even necessarily carry out any of the orders of the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States military. Now, there is a lot to talk about there, and I'm delighted to bring on none other than my good friend Matt Palumbo, the content manager of the Bongino Report and the author of a brand new book due out shortly about none other than George Soros. Matt, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on.
Matt, I don't know how much you've taken a look into this story yet, but I'd like to get your response to this. I mean, I think this is potentially one of the most heinous things this country has ever seen. A member, the most senior member of the armed forces, appears to have directly gone to a hostile power that is interested in invading U.S. allies in the region, in its region, a hostile power that is engaged in multiple provocations, cyber attacks against the United States, flooding the country with fentanyl, opioids of all sorts. You go through the CBP press release part of their website, you'll see hostile to a lot of other allied nations of the United States, but pretty much as bad as you can get, right? Pretty much as bad as you can get. We're talking Nazi Germany level stuff here. And
yeah, I mean,
the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff says, hey, we're going to tip you off if that Trump guy wants to defend Taiwan or something like that. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I just read the story when you sent it to me, I think an hour or so ago. But the unfortunate thing is it's really not surprising. I mean, just ever since Biden took office, and there's been all these stories like them pushing, critical race theory or racial propaganda, or all just focusing attention on things that don't really have to do with military readiness, but more almost seem like they're trying to purposely destabilize the military. And right-wing media has been reporting a lot more under Biden, but I always had a suspicion, there's no way it just started in January. I feel like this must have been kind of going on behind the scenes this whole time. And this sort of confirms that to some extent that, yes, I mean, they always have been trying to make, the swamp is real, of course, and it takes evidently a lot more than what administrations to drain, unfortunately.
It's such a good point. This didn't change in October of last year or in January of this year. How long have people like General Milley been effectively colluding with enemies of the United States in order to neutralize the president of the United States? I mean, that is what is going on here. I got to tell you, I was at the gym when I even found out this story was floating around. I was watching MSNBC, funnily enough, on the screens in front of me, and they flashed it across the chyron, and I thought to myself, well, they don't really realize what this means, because otherwise they really wouldn't be reporting on it. But what it really truly means, and ladies and gentlemen, do not take my word for it. I always say that. Don't take my word for it. Go into the reporting yourselves. It's the lead story up at the National Pulse. You can go and check it out on the Washington Post or on any other of the sites that are covering this right now. Just pick your poison and go and read what Milley has done here, because it is something akin to treason, I believe, and it goes even further than this. Of course, Milley has shown incredible deference to Joe Biden since Biden took office, and in the book, it actually says that Milley told the Joint Chiefs of Staff, quote, "You're dealing with a seasoned politician here who has been in Washington, D.C. 50 years or whatever it is. So don't second guess his decisions on the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Well, we now know how well that went. Matt, what are the accountability? I keep thinking to myself now. I was looking at some New York Times reporting from 2017 about Vladimir Putin this morning, and I noted that they had written, Mr. Putin's government has cracked down hard on dissent, spying on jailing, and critics charge sometimes assassinating opponents while consolidating control over the news, media, and internet. That sounds like Vladimir Biden, not Vladimir Putin to me.
Yeah.
So how can there even be, any recall? Let's talk about that. How can there be any accountability here? They own and control everything, and apparently at the behest of the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, ultimately, I mean, I think we all know this, everyone listening, is there isn't going to be any accountability. I mean, the only accountability, quote unquote, accountability we can enforce is just making sure people are aware of the truth. But unfortunately, I mean, they make the rules. They've always made the rules. A lot of conservatives don't seem to realize that. And I mean, if there's anything to me, I think it started with Ralph Northam, where he was the first to realize that, like, as long as you're a liberal, you can just kind of wait out a scandal for about a week or two, and it just kind of goes away at that point. They're already sort of doing that with Afghanistan as a whole, where, they told us they're ready to get everyone out. And then, the deadline went past, and they changed the talking point. So, well, actually, the people there want to stay there. And then that, didn't really work. So now they're, again, acknowledging, okay, there's still a couple hundred people stranded. But now they're trying to move on to, like, things like infrastructure and the budget. And it's just kind of we can only hold them to account, for weeks at a time, it seems like. But when it comes to consequences, it just seems like that's where we always seem to lose.
What do you think of what's going on in California at the moment? Obviously, it's D-Day for the recall election, and the Democrats have been kind of crowing for the last 48 hours. Oh, we got this. Don't even worry about it. I mean, that is some level of chutzpah, considering the I think fundamental unpopularity of Gavin Newsom, the fundamental unpopularity of Democrats across the country, the fundamental unpopularity of Joe Biden across the country. I mean, have you ever seen in your life, at ball games, charity events, 9/11 memorial commemorations, people chanting F you to the President of the United States like that?
And no, they didn't even do that to Trump, so clearly it actually means something this time. I think the irony, too, is probably 1 in 5 of those people chanting that probably voted for the guy less than a year ago.
Yeah.
As for the California recall, I mean, it's unfortunately, he is polling, Gavin Newsom is polling that he's likely to stay in office. And even, the right-wing polls, or not really right-wing, but like Talafagar, from pronouncing that right, even there has that he'll stay in office. But even a month ago, he was basically tied with, like, not with Elder, however they do the poll, like, again.
Yeah. Tied, get out or stay in, right.
Yeah. Just a month ago, he was tied. So it is weird to see. I think the polls opened up like a 20-point gap in the past month. So yeah, it is weird to see such a reversal. I'm not, sure what event could have possibly drawn that. But I don't know. I mean, the fact that they were able to get the recall petition enough signatures at least says something, even if, it doesn't end up getting recalled.
Yeah, I think we're going to see all sorts of funny business surrounding it, quite frankly. And I think
we already were. I mean, and this is just one polling station, but there was one yesterday where a number of people went to vote, and they were told they had already voted. Coincidentally, every single one of them that happened to was a Republican, and of course, it's just one location, but obviously, we don't know. Maybe that's multiplied across many.
Yeah.
We'll wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, frankly, I think I voted, and I'm not even eligible. for multiple reasons I'm not eligible. Matt, I think there's this preponderance of I know you're more level-headed than I am. I look at things a little bit more from a how do I put this without insulting either of us? From a kind of a supernatural level almost. This fight between good and evil that's taking place right now. And I know you're kind of more studious, academic, and level-headed about a lot of these things, but I don't see much reason to be optimistic at the moment. What say you?
Oh, about what, just the country in general?
Yeah, all of this stuff.
I don't know if there is a place of optimism. I want to know where. But I know I'm just kind of repeating Republican talking points, so they're all true. It's okay, we have a record labor shortage. We've got record inflation. We've scrapped 20 years of progress in the Middle East. Not like there was, really much progress to begin with, but whatever we had is gone. it seems like our president can't even answer questions correct. And whenever he does, the White House cuts off his prompter. So clearly, he's answering competently, or else they'd let us see it. It's just there's not one data point anyone can really point to right now that gives any cause for optimism, unfortunately.
It's extraordinary. It's really extraordinary. Yeah. And I think, look, I know a lot of people out there, ladies and gentlemen. I know you're listening to this and you're going, "All right, well, come on. What am I listening for? Is this just the decline podcast now?" And in a way, yes, quite frankly. But I know a lot of people out there, Matt, feel like actually, the point that you're making, Raheem, is the source of some optimism, because it means more people are waking up. It means more people are getting out and demonstrating. It means more people are becoming precinct committeemen, taking their country's future into their own hands. Are you? I mean, I see sparks of that out there, but I've yet to see a unified movement of it. What do you think of that?
Do you mean against Biden, or just like about optics in general?
I think in general, people are kind of wondering where not just where their political future lies, but they're starting to make the link between a political future and any future. You can't have one without the other. If the state is everything, cradle to grave, then that is your life. You don't get to dictate it. And I think some people are starting to countenance it. The problem I find, and I'm doing a tee up for your book here in a minute. The problem I find is that you have a lot of people who have decided that actually cradle-to-grave statism is what I want. I want to sit on TikTok all day. I want checks to arrive in the mail. I don't want to have to necessarily do anything. If I do something, it's got to be, mindless menial labor that I can just kind of clock into between making, my latest TikTok videos. And then the other half of the country wants the complete opposite, the total reverse of that. I don't even see how the union holds along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell anecdotally, because the thing is, liberals are much more loud and obnoxious about their views than conservatives are. I mean, you can see that really, like, on social media among any notable news event where, like, all the kids from your high school are posting insufferable liberal opinions, and that's really the only opinion you see. While conservatives are kind of more going about it in private. Yeah. So it's always going to definitely appear publicly that there's more liberal sentiments. But I think in private it's probably more balanced out, even if young people are more liberal. As for an opposition against Joe Biden, I haven't really seen anyone really step forward to kind of lead that charge yet. Unfortunately, I don't know, like, how in previous elections when that kind of person would come forward. I mean, after all, it only has been whatever 8 or so months as bad as they've been.
God, it feels like 8 or 9 years. I mean, it really does. I mean, I suppose the left kind of felt this way under Trump, but at least things were going well. People got wealthier. Gas prices were getting lower. They confected a lot of things. He's friends with totalitarians. No, that was General Milley. He's colluding against a country with another country. No, that was General Milley. He is misabusing the chains of command. No, that was General Milley. They turned the presidency in just like a play-by-play of everything Trump's doing / reality show. So, like, there's no coverage of the economy or things that he's actually getting done, and it was all like, oh my God, this staffer only worked there for 8 days, and he said something bad about the other staffer on the way out, or I mean, we literally saw CNN covering Trump's ice cream usage. Actually, my favorite event of the entire administration was on the Washington Post fact checker. He has like a list of Trump lies, and I'm not kidding. So there was an event Trump had where he had McDonald's cater it. Yeah. So Trump, it was like some basketball or some sports thing, but he was saying to the players beforehand, he said something like, we got so many big packs that you put them, like you stack them on top of each other, they'd reach the moon. Yeah. And I'm not kidding. They did the math on how many burgers it would take to reach the moon to prove that Trump lied. Is that true?
So that was the level of analysis we're getting under the Trump administration by the media, unfortunately. It does put horse blinders on a lot of people who don't know anything about politics, and they don't realize that they're kind of being fed nonsense by people who don't really know anything.
It's extraordinary. Yeah. Matt, I won't take up too much more of your time, but I want to get into your book. Sure. Your last one was phenomenal. You do such a great job managing the homepage of the Bongino Report as well. I mean, your lead story at the moment up there is just perfect, I would say.
I think one of the greatest stories we've ever run.
I think that's right. And for those that don't know, if you click that read more link up on the Bongino Report's lead story right now, it goes straight to the nationalpulse.com. So a little bit of nepotism going on right here. Matt, tell us about the next book. What's it called? Why did you write it? And why would it be better if I had written it?
Ooh, well, I guess the last question's unanswerable, but it's called the Man Behind the Curtain: The Secret Network of George Soros. Though it's actually quite public, it's just no one's really kind of put the pieces together, and I think an easily digestible format, which is really what I aim to do with the book. It started as a project. Dan Mangino actually pitched the idea to me. And he kind of wanted me to start by doing something that was sort of an expansion of his last book, which is called Follow the Money. And it's part of a trilogy he's done just on like the deep state's efforts to take down Trump, starting from before even the 2016 election, all throughout his presidency. And I actually helped out with the first one called Spygate. So it grew out of his third book in that series, so obviously it's a trilogy. And there's a section in it that had a lot to do with, Ukraine and impeachment. Obviously, it was the goal of the Ukrainian president that sparked it all. And there was a mention of a number of connections between, so-called anti-corruption organizations in Ukraine that were Soros funded. The alleged whistleblower, and then also a lot of like these sort of like deep state and like U.S. Figures in Ukraine. So I just sort of built an entire really short book based, like a 15,000 word, really brief thing. It's actually probably half the length of a short book. Yeah. Just expanding that out, just on all the Soros Ukraine connections. And then, it was a question of, all right, I've got another 55,000 words to fill. So, what am I going to try to make this book? So I just try to make it really like a comprehensive overview of starting with his life and, everything you need to know. Growing up, who was he? Where did he come from? How did he make all this money? And, of course, there's a lot of dirt on the way, some of which people will be familiar with, but I think a lot of new stuff in there as well. And then the rest is sort of, it's biography / reference guide / I don't know what you call it, but like I'll go through, for instance, I'll do a check just on media, and I'll just go through every single person in the news media connected to Soros, whether it's directly through his organization,
that's cool,
or if they work for a Soros-funded organization, and then, what boards they sit on, and it's pretty much every mainstream outlet that's someone Soros-related. And, I can find examples of like their coverage being biased in front of them, so, there's no doubt that it's influencing them. And I just try to do that for pretty much every subcategory of life. So, like, I do one on colleges he's been influencing. I have a lot on his influence in the 2020 election, and then even prior elections, although, I try to focus more contemporary. And then, another interesting section, I think, too, was I found maybe a dozen or so leaked documents from Soros' organizations. So you sort of get, like, some perspective there on, how they phrase things when they don't think we're reading. But that's, basically overview of the book. It's, I'd say, critical biography, around 70 or so thousand words. And then at the end of the book, too, I have like an appendix where pretty much every single notable organization that Soros has ever touched, I have a brief overview of. You can just flip through it and kind of find anything that you think might be funded by the guy.
What was the thing that sort of surprised you most or interested you most when you were researching and writing this thing?
Well, the most interesting thing was, and it was, I was kind of surprised we haven't, quote unquote, seized or pounced on it. It's how kind of openly, not corrupt, but egomaniacal the guy is. And I know you've read his biographies and some of his books as well, and there's really no effort to hide that he's self-centered, that even his philanthropy is ultimately for himself, and that he just seems to kind of like meddling for the sake of meddling. I assumed he would have been, done what most liberals do and kind of use language to cleverly to cloak what his true motives are. But he's I don't know, a very transparent Sith Lord, I guess.
Do you think he thinks of himself as a failure?
Yeah. Oh, he's referenced. I have quotes from the book. He refers to himself as a god. I think even my opening quotes of the book is him saying his goal is to be the conscience of the world, which I think God will never happen. But yeah, he definitely sees himself that way.
It's really interesting to me because he always wanted to be a philosopher, not a philanthropist, and he failed. He was derivative, boring, dull, unoriginal, struggled really to get any points across, let alone come up with anything new or worthwhile, offering anything worthwhile to humanity. And so it seemed like he pivoted to politics and philanthropy within politics as a means by which to kind of convince himself that, if I can't make good change, I can still make change. And as you and I know, that change for change's sake is often very destructive.
Yeah. He first wanted to finance, and then his account is that he wanted to finance, made $100 million, and then said, I don't need any more money. I'll just put it all towards philanthropy. Now, obviously, his net worth is something like, if you exclude his most recent donation to his foundations, his net worth would be something like $40 million. So clearly, $100 million wasn't enough. But that was his origin story for the philanthropy.
Wait, his net worth now is what?
Had enough. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
His net worth now is what?
So it's under $10 million, but he very recently donated about $30 billion
to
his foundations. So he's got about $10 billion left after that. It's like 8-point-something billion. But
how do you live off that?
That's a good question. But it's effectively $40 billion, but technically 10.
I don't get out of bed for less than 50. Well, Matt, I don't want to go too long with you because I want to keep this tight and make sure that people get a chance to pre-order the book. When's it coming out? So
it'll be out near the end of December. And so far, we're pre-order in Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Obviously, I think most people would prefer Barnes & Noble just because it's not Amazon.
Yeah, I see it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes & Noble, it's on Bookshop, it's on Books A Million, I think it's on IndieBound. Are you going to have audiobooks?
Yeah, so audio and Kindle out.
Wait, hold on. Just remind the audience, where are you from?
New Jersey.
Yeah, please don't narrate the audiobook yourself. I will not be able to. I won't be able to understand it, and I won't be able to put it on 2.5 times speed.
They wouldn't let me, so no, don't worry about
it. Saw roast. That's kind of my Matt Palumbo and Anthony Fauci had a love child, and that's how it speaks. But it's out for pre-order now. It's got amazing endorsements. I want to read one. Quote: Soros has been demonized, critiqued, and ostracized by the political right. Now he has been explained, and in doing so, exposed. Matt Palumbo shows he is worthy of his position as Dan Bongino's acolyte in The Man Behind the Curtain. Get this book, read this book, act upon this book. Stephen K. Bannon. That's a pretty solid endorsement.
Yeah, I obviously agree with every word of it. And we even got Newt Gingrich, who, as we know, is apparently not allowed to utter the man's name on Fox News to endorse it as well. Oh, yeah. So two very heavy hitters there.
That's so good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you got to pre-order this. Matt, your social media coordinates so people can follow you.
Oh, yeah, Twitter, Matt Palumbo 12. That's really the only place I'm active right now.
Why are you on Getter?
On where? Getter? I still don't keep track of, man.
Oh, man. I'm now like at
500. Is there any way I can...
I'm at like 510,000 people on Getter. What do you say?
Is there any way I can sync it so it posts to both? Because then I won't be lazy and I might do it.
So originally, Getter had that functionality, and then Twitter kind of, I think, had a little legal hissy fit about it. Yeah. Their API is kind of restrictive in that regard. But I actually, can I tell you something? I actually find what I do is I save my kind of best and spiciest thoughts for Getter. And my Twitter posts are really just to divert traffic to the National Pulse and to my Getter page. So that's how I use it. I think it's great, by the way. And I think the technology is only going to get better. So I'm going to get you on Getter. Oh, by the way, dude, I'll get you verified if that's your worry. I know you don't want to look like a schmendrick on there.
We can make a Bongino Report account and have an RSS feed, too.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we'll definitely talk about that offline.
All right, Matt Palumbo, you're a gentleman, you're a scholar. Your book is out December the 21st. It's called The Man Behind the Curtain. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to do me a big solid and make sure you pre-order that right now. Otherwise, Matt will never come on this show again. He'll say, you got no sway, Raheem. You got no leverage. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, bud.
Cheers. Well, look, I wanted to have Matt on specifically because, well, frankly, I wanted to plug his book. He's a great guy. He's done a great job with this book, and I want everybody to get it. Not least because the real dangerous Soros is just now coming into his own. That would be Alex Soros, son of George Soros. So now is a very, very good time. Now, the reason I ribbed him a little bit there with my third question, which was why would it have been better if I had written it, was I told Matt about a year and a half ago that I had bought every book by, about, or featuring George Soros, and I was going to read them all and do this epic book about George Soros. I never got round to it, of course. Story of my life. But Matt has done this. Matt had basically stolen the idea, which is totally fine by me, because at least he did it. And I think I could have done a better job. We'll see. The book is The Man Behind the Curtain. I'm going to get it. I want everybody else to get it. And I'll in fact, what I'll do is I'll get Matt to maybe sign a couple copies and give them away to our members over at the National Pulse. That's right. The National Pulse is run by you, ladies and gentlemen. It's funded by you, ladies and gentlemen. Just got off the phone with another one of our lifetime members yesterday. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful lady. Usually I do 20-minute calls with our members. She was so interesting and intriguing and kind and friendly and funny. We stayed on the phone for an hour. It's my favorite thing to do. It's a perfect escape from Washington, D.C. world. So if you want to come over and join us, we have a Discord chat channel. You get calls with me, cool swag in the mail. The website is real simple. It's just fundrealnews.com, and you might be opening your wallet and a bat is flying out of it and there's cobwebs and you might think, I can't afford that. Listen, you can join our Discord for just $5 a month. Think of it as the equivalent of buying me a very, very cheap beer. And come on down, join us. Look, I'm 31 minutes into this podcast today, and I said last time that I don't come down here and hit this record button and go through all of the rigmarole of uploading a podcast unless I really have something to say. And I'm not an alarmist. I don't want people setting their hair on fire and panicking over these things. But just to shift the tone here a little bit, I do think this Milley thing today is kind of everything. I do. I think it's the biggest sign that we've seen so far that there was actually a coup in the United States, and it was the oligarchy selling out to the Chinese Communist Party. It's not just the Fareed Zakarias of the world, people grifters trying to make a quick buck. I mean, this is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Again, read the story for yourselves. Hell, for all I care, go out and buy that book, Peril, by Woodward and Costa. I probably will. And let it sink in that the woke general, as we know him now, and I know, we all probably have pretty poor estimations of Milley, but this is different. This isn't about character. This is now about treason, right? This is about something I don't think this country has ever really experienced, which is its own government turning against the nation itself, against the Constitution, against the people, and handing the reins of the next century to a communist, totalitarian, murderous, you want to talk about ethno-supremacism, look no further than the Chinese Communist Party. Group of thugs, an international cartel of gangsters who have outplayed, outthought, outmaneuvered, outspent America's best and brightest. And I got some news for you. It's because your best and brightest are shit. They just are. I'm sorry. I know there's been a couple of people complaining about my language in the comments section. I'll tone it down a little bit, but there is an art to swearing. I heard the echoes of people at home right there going, "Fuck yeah!" There is an art to it. It underscores points in a way that you can't do necessarily in speaking. It's kind of like an underline or an italic. There are other ways to emphasize a point for sure, but sometimes just need a good classic F-bomb. And look, for the squeamish people who are listening to this around their 12-year-old children, maybe it ain't for you. Sorry about that. But your ruling class is shit. They're dumb. They're dumb. They have low IQs. Their primary concern is their bank balance. The secondary concern is how much power they can wield over you. Because you're the schmendrick. And I want you to internalize that, really. I know we got some wealthy people in this audience. We got some poor people in this audience. We got some politically active, politically inactive, homeowners, renters. I know it. I know it. I talk to you guys every day. In the Discord, on social media, in person, on the phone. I know it. I know who you are. I know the breadth, the diversity of this audience. There's one thing you share in common, and I have it in common with you too. We're schmendricks. We're the bottom rung of the ladder to these people. We don't matter. Our lives don't matter. Our freedoms don't matter. Our bank balances certainly don't matter. They only matter in the sense that they would like more from our bank balances and more for them. You know, when AOC wears her, by the way, tacky dress, not even a good dress. Take the writing off it. It's a crap dress. It doesn't even look good. By the way, the best part of all of that is she got ripped off. Even if she got that for $1, she got ripped off. It's made out of like, whatever you call it, polystyrene and shit. It's just gross. It's just gross. But she goes to the Met Gala. The Met Gala. Tax the rich on her bum. And then she's wiggling for the cameras. These are your representatives. This is embarrassing. It's humiliating. I think the rest of the world is looking at that and going, oh yeah, that's cool. America, yeah, they know where it's at. No, they think you're an idiot. They think you're all idiots. You have this in your Congress? She's wiggling her bum at the Met Gala. Tax the rich. She doesn't want to tax the rich. You think she was going around there yesterday with a hat, collection plate? Hey, sign it up. 25% of all your income, 50% of all your income right now. Let's go. No. She was going around to all of those people, I guarantee you, who pay 2% or 3% or 5% because they've got very complex and clever tax arrangements. She's going around there going, don't worry, I don't mean you guys. I mean the upper middle class. You know, the people who are making a couple of $100,000 a year, not the people who are making billions of dollars a year. Obviously, I can't be taxing you. You own the media companies and the social media companies and all of that keeps me who I am. AOC. Fraudsters. Total fraudsters. And then you got, look at it today. Some of you may be out there thinking, why are you so shocked about this? You know, you've not been paying attention. Of course I've been paying attention. I am the attention. I am the loop. I am the science, as Fauci likes to say. But there is something particularly galling, hurtful, soul-destroying about this country going through it. The United States of America going through it. Because I came over here thinking, well, oh, glad, at least I've escaped decline as a mentality. People in England listening to this will know for certain that Westminster mindset. We're not good enough. We're not big enough. We're not clever enough. We're not strong enough. We're not important enough. These are all the things that the political establishment tried to ram down our throats on the run-up to that Brexit referendum, right? Britain can't go it alone in the world. We're puny and pathetic people. No, the country responded. We're big enough. We're ugly enough. We can chart our own course. Now, fast forward 5 years, and of course you've got this homunculus buffoon, to quote himself, supine, invertebrate, jellied, pusillanimous moron, frankly, in charge of the country, Boris Johnson. But at least the British public have it within their gift somewhat. now that the power is vested back in Westminster and not in Brussels. Where is America's power vested right now? Serious question. Because it sure feels like that power is vested in Beijing, not in Washington, D.C. Think very carefully about what everything means when they say it to you. When they try and sell you on something, think very carefully about what it means. What does it mean when they say the adults are in charge again? Do you really think they mean Joe Biden? Do you really think they mean AOC? Or do they mean the Chinese Communist Party, who can basically pull on the strings of almost any person in the US government? There was a man they couldn't pull on the strings of. A man by the name of Trump. And they sure saw to it that not only would he not get a second term, but that his voice would effectively be nullified. Now, I know I complained on the last podcast that Trump's interviews aren't even necessarily worth listening to anymore, and that's true. I stand by that. I say that to people all the time. I'm not hiding it. I'm saying it publicly. It's not me being snide. I just think he needs to mix it up a bit. I think he's got it within him, but I think he needs to mix it up. Well, what should he do? I don't know. You know, if he was sitting here in front of me, I think we'd have a pretty good discussion about what he should do. But it ain't cutting through right now, and it ain't cutting through for a multitude of reasons. One of those reasons is the big tech and the CCP don't want him to. The third reason is that he's lacking a little bit of the mojo at the moment. Maybe he's saving himself. I don't think he should, but old man, maybe just saving the energy for the big campaign. Let's hope. Whatever. But you see the arc here. You see the narrative, the trajectory, the arc of history that is playing out before us. It is the handover, without your consent, of your power, your money, your intellectual property, your future, your children's future, to a bunch of thugs from China. That is what is happening. That is what we will continue to report on. And hey, you know, if the ship goes down, the SS Western civilization, we'll go down with it. We're not jumping over to that side anytime. Anytime. No QSEF cash, no 10-cent investments will convince us that criminal cartel should be worked with. No. They don't believe the same things as you and I do. They don't believe, essentially, pay very close attention to words when they're used. Essentially. At the essential core of it all, they do not believe in liberty, in humanity. And that's all there is to it. I want to say a great big thank you to some of our newest members who have joined up at fundrealnews.com. If you haven't made the jump over yet, please think very seriously about supporting Real News. I know you give to political candidates. I know you may have never given to a news media organization yet, but we don't take corporate cash. So thank you to ordinary people for backing us up. Gene, Ed, Cheryl, Butch, Janine, Jerry, Rose, Bill, Elizabeth, Connie, Joe, Nancy, William, Linda, Bertha, Doug, Alan, Rhonda, John, Sandra, Laurie, Patricia, Daniel, Don, Nahida, Bill, Marsha, Jerry, Ellen, Gib, James, Donna, Murray, Kevin, Charlene, Sharon, Sheila, a lot of sh's there. Timothy, Rachel, Gary, Bass, Trung, Brian, Florence, John, Jane, Judith, Gail, Eric, Jan, Nancy, Kimberly, Billy, John, Joe, Jackie, Latham, Thomas, Julie, Peter, Yelena, Dana, Walker, Stephen, Zhao, Paulette, Carol, Tolek, Tamara, James, Greg, Elvira, Elmo, Vicky, James, Teresa, Faye, Paul, Lawrence, Charles. That is just in the last couple of weeks. Thank you for joining up and supporting our work. I appreciate it. Natalie appreciates it. We'll see you next time. The next time I have something to say here on thenationalpulse.com. Share the site with your friends. We're so delighted with the redesign. I hope you are too. See you next time.